So in this next exercise, we're going to be taking a look at the concept of the allocations of raw materials onto our work orders. This step is a vital part of the manufacturing process insofar as your production paperwork and your production tracking against the work order can't be performed until you have a complete allocation of goods onto the job. So to start, let's come under our manufacturing, then the planning block, and we're going to come into work order. So in here, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the allocation status here in the lower right hand corner. So you can see in this case, I have a complete allocation on the job. Okay. So again, by virtue of it being a complete allocation, this is a work order that can be ready to process. To see some additional details of the allocation, we can come over here to the Components tab. And in here, we see a listing of the required quantity. Then if I come over to this column, the quantity allocated, this is going to show me how many units have been allocated. We also have this shortage column over here. Much like the shortages that we discussed in the context of sales orders, the system can be set up to generate shortages on your work order so that you can, in the event that you have insufficient raw materials to process the job, a shortage record will be created and you can run inquiries against those shortages to see what raw material need to be filled. Okay. In here on the work order, let's come in and I want to show you this action button that we have on the line. So in here, if I hit my action button, then underneath here I have this option for view allocation. So I can go ahead and click on that, and this is going to basically show me the goods that have been reserved on the line. Now in this case, you can see that my allocation type is global. So in this case, it's just allocating this 7,700 pounds of product. It's not, the system is not doing anything by way of specifying the specific lots or out of what locations these goods are going to come. It's just a simple global allocation of the quantity. Now, it should be noted that when you do your allocation, you can also perform a detailed allocation, which would allow the user to specify the particular lots that are to be applied on the job. Okay, so let's close out of here. So as it relates to those detailed allocations, if I come under my action button, and I come to this option here for manual allocations, that will take us into this area here, whereby over here my left list, my stock selection, this is going to show me all my lots, if the goods are lot controlled, that I have on hand for that product, as well as the respective locations that they're found in. So in this case, I could go ahead and I only have one lot out there for this intermediate, but I can click on that, and that will bring those details in here on the line. Then I can go ahead and do a save here. Okay, so in this case, that particular line is now going to be detail allocated. Okay. On the work order here, another thing to note is that we have this allocation button. So through this allocation, I can pull this up, and it gives me information here. It says, okay, currently you have a total of 4 material lines. You have 3 global allocations and 1 detailed allocation. If I want to go ahead and deallocate, or basically, free up these raw materials from the job, I can come over here and click on my deallocate button, and that in part will go ahead and clear out all my allocations. Then I can turn around and click on the allocate button, and that will serve to reallocate the goods. Okay. Let me go ahead and deallocate here. You'll notice down here in the allocation type, I can go ahead and flag that over to a detailed allocation, then go ahead and reallocate. Now I have 4 detailed allocations performed. So if I go ahead and close page on here, come back to my Components tab. Now I can come in here and go to my View Allocation. And I can see in here, now I have an allocation type of detailed. Okay, so for this particular product here, it's not lot controlled, but it is location controlled, so I have the location from which those goods should be pulled. Okay, so let's go ahead and close page out of here. So, that's one way by which raw materials can be allocated to a work order. Let's go ahead and close page out of here now. I also want to show you some of the different batch processes that we have to perform our allocations. So again, under manufacturing, if I come down under batch processes, I have under this allocation, deallocation section, I have these 2 options. So this is kind of like mass deallocation and mass allocation. So for instance, I could come under this automatic deallocation function. So under the deallocation functions, I can come in here, specify my production site. Then I could come over here and say, okay, I want to go ahead and deallocate all work orders that have a requirement cut off through such and such day. You know, down here I could filter on priority, filter on work order number, and so forth, filter on particular material if there's just, you know, maybe one material that I need to free up. Come over here and click on OK. Then this in part will give me a log file of all the components and intermediates along with their respective work orders that have been deallocated. Okay. So if I was to go back to that work order at this point in time, I would see that I have no inventory reserved against it. On the flip side of the coin, I have this allocation batch process. And again, I can specify my production site here. I got my requirement cutoff date that I can set. When I'm performing these mass allocations of raw materials, if I wanted to give priority first to those shortage quantities that I have out there, I could do that. It gives me options here to perform a detailed or global allocation, depending upon how I want to do my inventory reservations on the order. Okay. Then I also have a variety of filters down here, so maybe I could come in here and run the process first, maybe for those work orders that are flagged as being very urgent, before I did the allocations of my normal and my urgent orders. We have that capability too. Okay, come over here, click on my OK button. Then that'll go ahead and give us a log file here, showing us all the work order lines along with the intermediates and the raw materials that have been reserved on the jobs. Okay, so those are some of the kind of the batch processes that we have as it relates to the allocations. Another means by way of allocating raw materials to the job is through some settings on our entry transactions, our work order entry transaction. So let's come up, to see that, let's come up under our setup menu. Then we're going to come down under our manufacturing block. Then over to entry transactions, then to work orders. Okay. So in here, on the parameter definition tab, down here in the automatic functioning section, we have allocation method here. Okay, so 3 different settings in here. The first one being manual, meaning that when a work order is created, you know, no allocation is going to be performed. The user, if they wish for the work order to be allocated, they're going to have to manually click on the allocation button, do the action button to do the manual allocation, or run the batch processes that we just took a look at. Then we have these other two settings over here, these automatic options, automatic global allocation and automatic detailed allocation. And what these settings will do is upon creation of the work order, when the user clicks on the create button after they load the work order in, X3 is going to automatically attempt to do an allocation of the raw materials onto the job, whether it be on a global basis or a detailed basis. Okay, so if the nature of your manufacturing environment is such that you have like a real quick turnaround on your work orders, you may wish to leverage one of these tools here, just so that you don't have to waste any time and steps in doing subsequent allocations. You can just have the system do it for you automatically. All right, so let's go ahead and close out of here. And I also, while we're talking about setup, I want to draw our attention to an important general parameter value that we have in the system. If you come up under your setup, then in the general parameters block, we're going to come over to parameter values. And over in your left list here under the stock inventory, the STO, we're going to come down and we want to take a look at the miscellaneous group here, the MIS group, and show those details. So in here we have the second parameter here, this GEN-SHT for the generation of shortages. So we can, if this parameter here is set to yes, in those cases that you attempt to do an allocation on a work order and you have insufficient raw materials or intermediate products to fill that job out, it will actually generate a shortage number associated with that based upon the raw materials that you lack. Okay, so again, that's oftentimes a useful tool for inquiry purposes, for fulfillment managers that are trying to identify what their needs are. Then we also took a look at how when you run the allocation batch routines, how you can give priority to those shortages, okay, in the allocation process. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and step out of here. And next I want to show you some inquiries that we have in the system for the work order allocation. So if we come down, back down under our manufacturing menu, and we're going to come down under inquiries. We have this allocation section here. So two different inquiries here, one to show us the allocations and one to show us any shortages that we have outstanding. So let's go ahead and run the allocations inquiry first. I'll come in, specify my production site. I can filter on a product or a range of requirement dates. Come over here and do a search. Then in here it's showing me all my intermediate and raw materials that have been allocated to jobs, whether they are detailed or globally allocated. You have the respective quantities. If the goods are lot controlled, that'll be indicated in here. If the goods are location controlled, you'll have those details in here also. Okay, then here are the respective work order numbers that those goods are allocated against, and the products that are to be made. Okay, so that is our allocation inquiry. Close page and back to the main menu. We have the allocation shortage inquiry. Specify our production site here and do our search. And this is showing you the shortages that we have. So in this case, there was this intermediate product. We have a shortage, and this is we were attempting to do a global allocation. A shortage was generated for 1,269 pounds of this product. Okay, so again, a production manager, purchasing manager could use an inquiry such as this to identify any outstanding shortages that need to be filled in order for the work orders to be released. Okay. And you also have the work order number over here that you can reference. Okay, that's short. Alrighty. So finally, let's take a look next at a useful report as it relates to our work order shortages and allocations. So if I come down under my printouts menu, then over here to stock, then analysis, I'm going to grab this top report here for allocations. Okay. My allocation type range, I'm going to kind of do the full range of allocation values. You see the different ways by which we could filter on these allocations. If you just wanted to see shortage, for instances, you could set up your range like that. The type here, I'm going to change this to just work order. In this case, I'm just interested in work order allocations. Okay. Set up my date ranges, come over here and do a print, and that in part will generate this report for us, showing us our raw material. It's a globally allocated raw material. Here's your requirement date, the respective work order that it's allocated to in its quantity. So global allocation, here's another global allocation. Here for this intermediate product right here, here's an example of a shortage. Okay, an allocation shortage. There's another shortage in here. So again, this crystal report can be a useful tool to your organization as it relates to the identifying these needs. Okay, so those are the high points as it relates to the work order allocations in the system. In our next exercise here, we're going to be talking about the concept of production tracking against our work orders. Thank you.